McCaffrey tweeted, "This is criminal. 3 of the best players in the entire league, regardless of the position." Derrick Henry weighed in on the conversation as well, saying, "At this point, just take the running back position out of the game then. The ones that want to be great and work as hard as they can to give their all to an organization just seems like it doesn't even matter. I'm with every running back that's fighting to get what they deserve." Saquon commented on that situation on Twitter, saying, "It is what it is."
That's never good. That's my favorite term. And when I say it is, I am not happy.
Do you know what it is, what it is? That's like checked out.
It is like, okay.
Yeah. Kimberley, break it down for us. Why has the running back position been so devalued?
So here, unfortunately, is one word that has been mentioned to me quite a bit in conversations: collusion. Now, that you can't prove it, right? But remember the Lamar Jackson situation, and everyone thought, well, Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. How could, if he wants guaranteed money, how come nobody wants to give him guaranteed money? And it was clear, teams coming out saying, nope, we're good, we don't want it. It feels the same way to a lot of people around the league. And what the issue is that the league is telling us what they think of running backs. And what they think is, hey, you can lead the league in rushing. You can be the heart and soul of our offense. You can be the leader. You can be the guy that when we have primetime games, it's your face that's on the graphic and not our quarterback. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, there is a cap on what we think your value is. On the field, we will lean on you left and right. Toss you the ball, hand you the ball. You can win games for us. But when it comes down to what we are willing to pay and how we want to divvy up our money, your position, we don't value it. We would rather tag you, draft a running back, pay that running back, and when it gets time for his career, for him to get paid as a free agent, get rid of him too and start the process over. That's what the league is telling us. And that is what is so maddening watching this scene play out, because it is not just Saquon. It is not just Josh Jacobs. As you saw, Christian McCaffrey saying this is criminal. Derrick Henry saying get rid of the position altogether. Because the running back title, that is what teams are stuck on. And if I'm Saquon Barkley, my point is I am not a running back. I am your offense. I am your playmaker. I am the thing. I'm the vibe in this locker room. I've covered a lot of Giants games. So I know when you walk in that locker room, you go to 26's locker. You wait for 26 at the podium because he's that dude. But he's also the dude that didn't get $40 million. It's his quarterback that got that money.
All right, so this is the running back situation is super interesting to me right now, because I think, and we talked about this a lot on NFL Live last year, I think the running game is actually going to become back to being a foundational part of winning football in the NFL. I honestly think the running game is going to come back because of the way that defenses are playing. We call them shell defenses, too high defenses, but the running back position has been devalued. The reason why it's been devalued, number one, the rule changes. It's easier to throw the football now than it was 30 years ago. There's no question about that. The rule changes with you can't hit quarterbacks so they can hang in the pocket a little bit more in certain positions. You can't be physical with receivers getting off the line of scrimmage past 5 yards as much as you used to, and you can't knock guys out essentially crossing the middle of the field. So it's easier to throw the football. Teams therefore want to throw the football more. Number two, the emergence of the running quarterback. We have seen over the last 4 or 5 years, quarterbacks be used as running threats and their athleticism way more than certainly it was 30 years ago. And number three, the name of the game in the NFL is scoring points, firepower. If you don't score points, we don't see games so often or that often in the NFL over the last couple of years be won 17-14. Games are often, the Chiefs average 31 points a game with Patrick as their starting quarterback. And teams sit there and say, we're going to score by throwing the ball, and then if we got to find ways to run it near the end. So that's why the position has been devalued in my eyes. The last point will be this. I think, to my knowledge, the last team to go to a Super Bowl with a running back that was on a second deal is the Atlanta Falcons in 2016 with Devontae Foreman. That's the game that they were up 28-3. New England makes the comeback. I believe every other team that has gone to the Super Bowl with a running back has either been a rookie running back as their primary guy or a cast-off of a high draft pick, other than or indifferent to Devontae Foreman being a highly paid second contract back?
The number one problem, I think, is the elephant in the room here, and that's the franchise tag. It has been misused. It has been abused. This was a tool that was meant to keep quarterbacks from leaving, not to put a ceiling on any given position, which now we know is the running back position, and then prevent any sort of upward mobility. The problem with being a running back in the NFL is if you are a high achiever, if you have a career year, then teams are like, thanks, but no thanks. You priced yourself out of our range. And, one point on that, Le'Veon Bell, remember when he got his second franchise tag from the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2018? He didn't sign it. He sat out. That was $14.5 million. It's gone down to $10.1 million for Josh Jacobs, for Saquon Barkley. The situation now is only going to get worse because owners aren't budging. Front offices aren't budging. They see the cap and they say, well, the rules, you guys agreed to in the CBA, and there's probably not going to be any sort of rule change for at least, Bijan Robinson's probably not going to be affected by any sort of changes here within the CBA. It's going to be within the next 10 years that we might see any sort of effect that comes with the franchise tag. I go back to before we even got on the conversation of Saquon Barkley, before Josh Jacobs and yesterday, the deadline day came to fruition. Miles Sanders had a career year for the Philadelphia Eagles this past year. And the Eagles said, we'd rather spend about $3 million and go trade for, DeAndre Swift and have a very cheap backfield. They don't want to pay you if you have success. It was his first year that he had over 1,000 yards in his career. The first time the Eagles, a dominant rushing team in their own right, had that from a single running back since 2014. The problem is the NFL can look around to Kimberly's point about maybe it is collusion. Maybe it's them just going copycat league as it pertains to the running back position. They see one team not pay a running back. They do the same. And look at all of these outs in these contracts. Miles Sanders has an out after 2 years. And running backs, unfortunately, in the case of Saquon Barkley, in the case of Josh Jacobs and so many others, are the odd man out.
Yeah, I think two things. One, it's Devontae Freeman. That's on me, not Foreman, the tailback for the Falcons. So by far the most important position in the NFL is quarterback. It has never been more important than it is nowadays because there are so many incredible ones. Teams, and to your point, Courtney, with the phrasing that you used, the copycat stuff, teams sit there and go, if the quarterback is by far the most important position and we want to give him every opportunity to win the game, then they're going to invest in the offensive line significantly more frequently than they are the running back, because the offensive line and their performance has a direct kind of correlation and impact to how well the quarterback can play. And they believe, and that there's evidence, whether we like it or not. None of us wants to sit here and say, man, these guys shouldn't be paid. We all want these guys to get money that they have worked so hard their whole life for. But they're going to sit there and go, well, if we have a really good offensive line, one, that allows our quarterback to play at the highest level that he's capable of. Two, those wide receivers that we have, it gives them more opportunity to get the ball. And then three, if that offensive line that we've invested in is so good, then we can just get a good back, a la the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs have one of the, if not the best offensive lines in football, and they took a 7th-round draft pick in Isaiah Pacheco and went to the Super Bowl with them. And that's what we don't like it. But that's why these teams are looking at it the way that they are.
Fine. Business is business. I do get that. But doing business at what cost?
Sure.
Daniel, you and I just talked, we just got off set. We talked about this earlier this morning. When you look at the Giants, you can do the dollars and cents. You can say, oh, but the going market says you're not really worth this much. But what is that guy worth in your locker room?
Totally.
Mm-hmm. What is he worth in your huddle? What is he worth to your quarterback, especially if he's a young quarterback, especially if he's a quarterback who has a lot of questions about his own merit, his own talent, his own ceiling? That's why, especially the Saquon Barkley situation, I think the Giants, as much as I understand their point of view, I get the business angle. But when we preach in the NFL, when the NFL preaches loyalty, it's about team above self. And the team wants you to buy in. The understanding is when it is my time, when it is my turn, when I give my everything and I produce for us to win and get to the playoffs, then I'll be compensated. And the team says, well, buddy, still, we want you, but we don't value you that much financially. That, to me, that's why I say at what cost? Mm-hmm. Because this could have an effect in that locker room and in other locker rooms.
The question I've gotten a bunch the last couple of days, and it's one that I really had to think about, like why this is the way it is. Christian McCaffrey is the outlier.
Yes.
He will probably remain the outlier. Dan, you brought up a point. Every team, when they get a quarterback they want to pay, they're going to allocate those resources towards paying that position so they can go win Super Bowls, because it is the most important position in all of sports and it matters. Christian McCaffrey was on teams, starting with Carolina, who had a rotating cast of quarterbacks. They had the money. They also had the hubris, but they had the money to pay him $16 million on that deal he signed in the 2020 season. He goes to San Francisco, a team that didn't pay Jimmy Garoppolo, so they had those resources. Yes, they paid Nick Bosa, but they also had the resources to be able to take on that contract, not tell him to take any sort of pay cut, and that he can be fine. So we're never going to see that $16 million figure ever again, because those two teams, just give you the prime example, they put everything on Christian McCaffrey. He is their offense, similar to like Saquon Barkley in his situation. He is the Giants' offense, but they just paid a quarterback. They guaranteed a quarterback $84 million. They, in their mind, can't justify paying Saquon Barkley what he's worth. They paid a good player a lot of money in Daniel Jones. They neglected to pay a great player. And the fact that we are sitting here today, no deal got struck on Monday at the deadline.
Yep.
It's because that $22 million, which was kind of the magic number, that would have been 2 franchise tags, fully guaranteed salaries. That was what they failed to reach with Saquon Barkley.
The rule changes, making it easier to throw the football. You can see right here the notable running back holdout since 2007. But Dan, tell me this, which running back would you want the most? Is it Barkley, Jacobs, or Pollard?
Yeah, I would say Saquon Barkley because of his home run ability, a little bit more versatile than Josh Jacobs. You know, Saquon had, I think, like 1,700 of all-purpose yards last year if you go utilizing him as a wide receiver as well. Josh Jacobs had over 2,000 yards. Josh is a little bit more of a like old school bell cow, so to speak, than maybe Saquon and or Tony Pollard. I just think Saquon is, and maybe it's because I still see him through the vantage point of some of those Penn State years. I think that I go back to last year, and I think it was the first game of the season on the road against Tennessee. They go for 2, and just watching the emotional impact that had, and I believe they gave the ball to Saquon, the impact that it had on their sideline. And to Kmart's point from before, I put value in that. I put value in a guy that has been the face of our organization and done everything the right way through some lean years. Not that Daniel Jones hasn't. I think Josh is a great player. I think Tony Pollard's going to be a really, really good pro as long as he comes back from that injury. I just think because of the versatility and the way I can use him as a pass-catching threat, both lined up as a receiver and out of the backfield, I would take Saquon slightly over Josh.
I'm shocked. I agree with Daniel on this point. I actually agree. I agree, Saquon, because of how things looked for the Giants for so long, and Saquon was always that dude, was always that guy that they turned to. I covered a lot of Giants games last year. I was there when they beat the Ravens and shocked people. I was there when they beat Minnesota in the playoffs. I was there Christmas Eve as well when they played Minnesota and almost won. And I go back to all the conversations that I've had with Brian Daboll, the head coach, and I had with Saquon last year about Saquon knowing that it's on me. Like him saying, I know that I have to be my best. Like my team needs me. Brian Daboll talking to him week after week and him saying, you know what, we're really not going to change up much. Everybody knows the ball's going to Saquon. Like we understand, like we're not going to deviate from what works. And you've seen Saquon always be that guy through injury to come back and to literally carry. He's the offense. We've said it so much on this network. He is their offense, and he is that safety net for Daniel Jones. And now you put Daniel Jones in a position where, hey, the 15 touchdowns last year, like that's not going to cut it. The 15 touchdowns plus the 40 million. Now, and the thought of Saquon in this situation, like you need to be better. So I've seen Saquon just carry the rock, catch it, do everything, be an overall playmaker so many times. He's just so valuable to the city and that franchise.
Why would you get off a winning horse, too? I mean, it's their first winning season since 2016. Wouldn't you want to continue on that trend instead of make your offense worse with him not on the field? Based on the current state of the running back market, I'm going to go Josh Jacobs for this. Number one, he's a year younger than Saquon Barkley. So if you think about how teams value running back contracts, how they structure them, you'd think that he would have 4 more really good years in him. He had 3,000-yard seasons in his last 4 tries. He actually played less in college. So the Penn State days that we saw with Saquon Barkley, there's less tread on Josh Jacobs, averaging over 4 yards a carry the last 2 seasons with the Raiders. And the quarterback question there is far greater than it is with the New York Giants. We don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be healthy for week 1. So are you comfortable, if you are the Las Vegas Raiders, turning the running back room over to Amir Abdullah, who's a change of pace back? Because he's next in line. So if you're okay doing that, a season after Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing, did absolutely everything he needed to do to get paid, then good luck to you in the AFC West, because that is absolutely not the right formula for a successful offense, for a successful culture. Keeping that culture in the locker room, we know he's a big part of that. It's a tough one to stomach, but I would absolutely take Josh Jacobs based on what he's shown us the last couple years.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.